Hello friends, we are back with another Slay the Spire tier list. I'm actually just going to move this over here because it was definitely obscuring some of the cards last time. Apologies for that in the Ironclad video. Feel free to go back and have a look at that if you haven't seen it. It was a good time, at least for me. Don't let me tell you how to live your life, but we're back and we're ranking all of the silent cards. We have our tiers. Snap pick, meaning that you take it pretty much every time you see it. There's no card in Slay the Spire that you would take literally every time you see it in every circumstance, but these few cards will get pretty close. The next tier down is Incredible, cards that you will pick more than half the time in a vacuum. Then there's Pretty Good cards, which are pretty good, and you'll take them pretty often. Certainly in Act 1, you'll almost always find yourself picking up some of those. Then there are cards that are like Come Times Okay. They're Come Times fine to take. Maybe you take them over a skip in Act 1 in High Ascension, but you're not usually happy about it. And then the very bottom tier is Please Don't Take This. Sometimes you'll want to take them. There are some cards that are combo cards that work really well in some few situations and will occasionally be the right choice. The thing about roguelikes, and deck builders in particular, is that you always want to keep an open mind. You always want to be looking at each card and not just thinking, oh, that card's great, so I'll take it, or that card's terrible, so I'll take it. These tier lists are very reductive, and I fully accept that. There will be some bottom tier cards that are absolutely the right pick, and it's pretty common. But in a vacuum, in Act 1, this tier list is hopefully going to be reasonably accurate to you know, how frequently you would take each card. So without further ado, let's move on with the first card, Accuracy. 1 energy. Power. Shivs deal 4 additional damage. So floor 1, this does nothing, right? And I'm going to be ranking these based on how they are early in the game, because later in the game what you take depends very much on what you've got already, what your deck's trying to do, what your deck's weaknesses are. Early on, you're just looking for good, strong cards to get you through Act 1, more or less. Accuracy is not really one of them. It can be a really good card in decks which use a lot of shivs, decks which have a couple of copies of Blade Dance, perhaps, Cloak and Dagger, other cards that generate shivs. But in a vacuum, it's not great. I would skip overtaking this in Act 1 most of the time on High Ascension. If I transform into it from Nial's bonus, I'm not happy about it. I don't want to put it in Please Don't Take This, because shivs are something that Silent's really good at. Silent uses shivs a lot. A lot of good Silent decks depend on shivs for their damage output, and accuracy is really good in those decks. I'm going to put it in Come Times Okay, because Come Times it's okay. Acrobatics. Oh, upgrades. Are we going to try and do this again? Accuracy upgrades to shivs deal 6 additional damage, which is pretty good. Acrobatics, 1 energy skill, draw 3 cards, discard 1 card. Upgrades to draw 4 cards, discard 1 card. It's okay. A card draw that costs any energy and is just card draw really has to justify its place in the deck. You have to really need that card draw to justify spending, well, a card on it, because you have to draw acrobatics to play it, right? So you're drawing acrobatics instead of a card with an immediate effect. And you're also paying 1 energy, which means you have less energy to play the cards that you draw. So you have to really need that card draw. Discarding a card can be fine. Discarding a card can be good. Silent has some synergies with discarding cards. Things like Tincture, for example, which deals damage to a random enemy when you discard a card. But the synergy for discard in Silent is nothing like the synergy for exhaust in Ironclad. The synergy for discard in Silent is few and far between, and not really worth banking on, I would say. I'm putting acrobatics in Come Times Okay. Later in the game, it can be pretty good, it can even be incredible, but early on in a vacuum, it's not amazing. Adrenaline, our first rare card, 0 cost skill. Gain 1 energy, draw 2 cards, exhaust. Upgrades to gain 2 energy, draw 2 cards, exhaust. This is one of the very rare cards that you will take over a skip in just about every single situation. It's a snap pick. If it's upgraded, that's even better, but if not, it replaces itself, it draws you another card, and it gives you an energy for free. Only once per combat, but it is an exceptional addition to just about any Silent deck. Next up is Afterimage. 1 cost, rare power. Whenever you play a card, gain 1 block. This does not have the upgrade you want it to have, but it's still not bad. It upgrades to innate, so you always start with it in your hand. It's exceptionally strong. It is just a really good passive source of block. It could be compared to Metallicize. From Ironclad, Metallicize is a 1 cost power that gives you 3 block at the end of every turn, 4 block if it's upgraded. How many cards do you play in a turn? Well, on Ironclad, maybe 3. Unless you have some like Corruption, Dead Branch, Dark Embrace stuff going on, you could draw and play a lot more, obviously. But in general, 3 cards for an early to mid-game Ironclad deck is about right. For Silent, you're probably going to be playing at least 5, and it could be significantly more than that. If you are using something like Blade Dance, for example, this card is 4 cards in 1. That gives you 4 block with Afterimage. Afterimage is, I would say it's a snap pick. It's pretty close to Uncredible. It's not one of the higher tier snap pick cards, but it definitely earns its place for sure. Next up is a hard one to rank, Alchemize. 1 cost skill, obtain a random potion and exhaust. Upgrades to cost 0. It's good. It's really, really good. It's better before the Ascension level, which severely limits your potion slots. Takes it down from 3 to 2. But it's still really strong. If you think about what a random potion is going to do for you, what's the simplest potions in the game? Fire Potion, 20 damage. Block Potion, 12 block. Either of those for 1 energy is phenomenal. Now, you can't choose what you get, obviously, but to compensate for that, the power level is extremely high for 1 energy. If it's upgraded, even better. Even say you low roll and you get like a pretty weak potion, like a weak potion, for example. That's 3 turns of weak for 1 energy. It's not bad. Silent has a lot of sources of weak, but could always use more. Sorry, my throat is even worse than it was when I recorded the Ironclad one yesterday. I hope it's not too much of a distraction, that I keep having to mute the thing to cough. What was I saying? Yeah, so a weak potion would be a low roll, but it's still quite strong. A swift potion is functionally very similar to acrobatics, which is fine. And the high roll can be phenomenal. It could be a duplication potion, it could be a blood potion, which gives you a ridiculous amount of healing for 1 energy. Actually, can this give you a blood potion? I'm actually not 100% sure you can get healing potions from an Alchemize. That's a good question. I don't know. Obviously, this gets better with Sacred Bark, the boss relic. That's really just a way of saying that Alchemize makes Sacred Bark worth taking, because Sacred Bark is a little underpowered in general. But yeah, Alchemize, it's not quite a snap pick for me. Yeah, it is. It is. It just is. Yeah, I will take Alchemize. If I see it after the floor 1 boss, I will take it maybe 2/3 of the time, depending on what it's up against. It would have to be up against one of these two, really, or possibly Wraith Form. There are some good rare cards in Silent. All Out Attack, 1 cost, attack. Deal 10 damage to all enemies, discard 1 card at random. Upgrades, I believe, to deal 14 damage to all enemies. This is... It's a card that you can't afford to pass up in Act 1 if you're lacking any damage plan, but you're not really happy about it. It is decent AoE, but the fact that it discards a card would be really, really good if you could choose which one it discards, but you can't, and so that means that you kind of have to play All Out Attack after you play everything else, because otherwise you might discard something you intend to play. It's a bit of an awkward card. I think it's pretty good, but it's barely above Sometimes Okay for me. It just doesn't quite do enough, I think, to justify the cost of discarding a card, because, as I say, there's not that much discard synergy in Silent, even though it's something that the class kind of pushes a little bit. There are lots of cards that discard cards, but not that many ways to take advantage of that. Next up is 1,000 Cuts, 2 cost power. Whenever you play a card, deal 1 damage to all enemies. Another one of these cards that is really quite bad, unupgraded. but upgrades to have double the effect and is actually worth playing. In its unupgraded form, 1000 Cuts is an extremely, extremely slow damage plan. Costs 2 energy, which is quite a lot. Silent does not have that many ways of generating energy. And if you play, what did we say before? You play like maybe 5 cards a turn by the end of Act 1 on Silent in general. Obviously, that's highly variable. That's 5 damage to all enemies per turn for 2 cost. That's kind of like a Combust for Ironclad, but less reliable and with less synergy for self-damage, I suppose, which Combust has, which can be an upside or a downside. In its upgraded form, this is really strong, because it deals double damage. I mean, what more do you need? But unless you find it upgraded, which is very rare, it's okay at best. Backflip, 1 cost skill, gain 5 block, draw 2 cards. So my main issue with Acrobatics was not the fact that it's a 1 cost card, which just draws you cards. It's the fact that it's a 1 cost card that just draws you cards. A little bit of a shift in emphasis there. Backflip is a defend that also draws you 2 cards. Now, defend is a bad card, and it's a really common noob trap to say, oh, well, this card is better than a strike or better than a defend, so it's got to be good. Well, no, there's a lot of grey area between better than a starter card and good enough to take. Backflip clears that grey area easily. It's an incredible card. I think this might be the least controversial pick of all time. Backflip is A tier. It's not S tier, it's not a snap pick, but it's A tier. It's very, very good. It's very similar to Shrug It Off from Ironclad, which is 1 energy, gain 8 block, draw 1 card. Yes, you sacrifice a bit of block to draw an extra card, which is really, it's quite strong. I think it's better than Shrug It Off most of the time. Upgrades to gain 8 block, draw 2 cards. Next up is Backstab, 0 cost attack. They're always a little odd. It's innate, so you always start with it in your hand. Now you don't start with it in addition to your starting cards. It takes up a slot, takes up a draw. But as Silent, you have, unless you swap your relic out for a boss relic from Niao. Sorry, my music has stopped. Let's try that again. Yeah, as Silent, in the vast majority of cases, you have your starting relic, the Ring of the Snake, which draws you 2 extra cards on the first turn of combat, which is very, very good. And it means that you get Backstab plus 6 cards. So it's not as bad as it would be taking you up 1 slot out of 5. It's taking you up one slot out of 7, which is a much bigger number. And it's 0 cost. It deals 11 damage, upgrades to 15 damage. And it exhausts. You can only use it once. You don't have to use it the turn you draw it. Don't have to use it on turn 1. It's not ethereal. You can put it back in the deck, draw it again. 0 cost attack that deals 11 damage. You're always happy to draw those. Backstab is an A tier card. It's incredible. No further explanation needed. Bane, 1 cost attack. Deal 7 damage. If the enemy has poison, deal 7 damage again. So this is a card that you only really take if you have some way to consistently inflict poison. You have something like a Noxious Fumes or a Twisted Funnel, perhaps. But luckily, Silent has no shortage of ways to inflict poison. A cute little interaction with this card is with Envenom, which causes your attacks to also inflict poison. Bane will deal 7 damage and then inflict 1 poison, meaning that it always deals that 7 damage again and inflicts another poison. It's not bad. It's pretty good, I would say. Bane, I would say, is pretty good, only because you only want it if you have some poison going on. But the good thing about Silent is that generally you have some poison going on. Next up is Blade Dance. 1 cost skill. Add 3 shivs into your hand. Upgrades to add 4 shivs into your hand. Oh, Bane upgrades to 10 and 10, by the way, not 7 and 7. So Blade Dance is, as I say, 4 cards in 1, which is really good for Afterimage, really good for 1000 Cuts. And the shivs deal 4 damage each. Blade Dance is a skill, and as I say, it's a lot of cards in 1, so it's worse against, well, Time Eater would be the obvious example, worse against the Heart, because both of those fights punish you for playing lots of cards. Bad against Gremlin Knob because it's a skill rather than an attack. But it is in general so good that you don't really mind too much. You do have to be thinking about fights like that. Time Eater and Heart in particular are big fights that you need to be preparing for on High Ascension. But Blade Dance gets you to them. Very reliably, Blade Dance does a lot of damage. And if you're not already doing poison stuff, and sometimes even if you are, Blade Dance is very strong, I think it's an incredible card, even though it does suffer in a few specific fights. Blur, 1 energy, skill, gain 5 block. Block is not removed at the start of your next turn. A couple of things about Blur. Firstly, if it's not obvious, and it's not necessarily obvious, it's all of your block from this turn is not removed at the start of your next turn. Not just the block from Blur, any block that you have retains to the next turn. Secondly, and this upgrades to 8 block, by the way. Secondly, if you play Blur multiple times in the same turn, it carries over your block for multiple turns. It can be sort of like almost like a really janky barricade that actually gives you block. Barricade being the Ironclad card that prevents block from... Oh, the Ironclad power that prevents block from being removed on all of your subsequent turns. Blur, I think, is really good. It's kind of a tech card. It's not a block plan in itself, but it can be the glue that holds a block plan together. Something like After Image can be really strong with Blur, because you can play a bunch of cards on one turn, gain a load of block, and then Blur sticks, as glue would, sticks that block to you, and allows you to make use of it on the next turn. I think it's very strong. But situational. It's not that situational, is it? It's really... You always need block. It's just not that situational. It's just good. It's just good. I'm putting it in incredible, and you can't stop me. Bouncing Flask, 2-cost skill. Apply 3 poison to a random enemy 3 times. Immediate parallel with Sword Boomerang, right? Sword Boomerang is a 1-cost Ironclad attack that deals 3 damage to a random enemy 3 times. Well, applying 3 poison is better than dealing 3 damage. Like, strictly, right? It does 3 damage at the start of the enemy's next turn, and then it continues to do a little bit of damage after that. But the interesting parallel with Sword Boomerang is that both of these look like area of effect cards. They look like multi-target cards, but they're actually significantly better as single-target cards. Bouncing Flask actually even more so, because each point of poison is worth more damage than the one before it. This is an incredible card. It's 2 cost, which is quite a commitment for Silent, but it is generally worth it. It upgrades to 3 poison 4 times, much like Sword Boomerang. Upgrades to 3 attack damage 4 times. Next up is Bullet Time. 3 cost skill, not a power. You cannot draw additional cards this turn. That seems bad. Reduce the cost of all cards in your hand to 0 this turn. This is a card that you really want to draw on a specific turn. If you have lots of card draw and very little energy, which is very common for Silent, Bullet Time can be really strong. Should be noted as well that if you play Bullet Time and then draw cards, the cards that you draw are not reduced in cost. The text says reduce the cost of all cards in your hand to 0 this turn. So all cards that are in your hand at the time you play Bullet Time. I have a hard time evaluating this card. I really go back and forth on this a lot. I suspect it's good, but it feels like a trap. But I'm going to put it in pretty good. It costs 3, so it's a big commitment. But does it really cost 3 when it grants you infinite energy for all cards that you don't draw this turn? It's pretty good. Obviously not so great with things like X-cost cards, and Silent has a couple of really, really strong X-cost cards that we'll talk about, but edge case, Bullet Time's pretty good. Even better if you have a way to draw it on a specific turn, or you could bottle it with bottled, I always get this wrong, bottled lightning, in order to make your turn 1 just consistently very strong. Next up is Burst, 1 cost, skill. What's Bullet Time? Bullet Time's upgrade makes it cost 2, I think, which is like, yeah, you don't usually need that, given what Bullet Time does. Is that right? I think that's right. I'm doubting myself. I haven't played Silent in a while, if I'm honest. But yeah, it's all coming back to me. Burst, 1 cost skill. This turn, your next skill is played twice. Upgrades to your next 2 skills are played twice. Again, immediate parallel with double tap on Ironclad, and amplify on Defect, which we'll talk about in a future video. Burst is better than double tap. Ironclad has a really even mix of skills and attacks. Silent is very skill heavy. A lot of Silent damage comes from skills, like Bouncing Flask, for example, absolutely premium damage card, and it's a skill. Blade Dance is also a skill. And it's pretty premium. There are a whole bunch of these cards are skills. And Burst generally has a much better use case than Double Tap. I'm putting Burst in Incredible, and this is not even considering specific synergies with cards that shall not be named. Catalyst, obviously. Yeah, it's just very, very strong in general. Calculated Gamble, 0 cost skill, discard your card, then draw that many cards, exhaust. The card this has most of a parallel with, on Ironclad, in my opinion, is actually Warcry. Both cards are -1 draw, because you play it and it doesn't replace itself, or Warcry does, and then you have to discard another card, whatever. Calculated Gamble is extremely strong. There's an obvious parallel with Reboot on Defect as well. Yeah, I'm going to put it in Incredible, because getting rid of cards you don't want and drawing new cards is just so strong. It's just so strong. It is a really good candidate for Bottled Lightning as well, to make sure that you have really strong turn 1s almost every time. It interacts with the relatively limited discard synergy that Silent has, but it interacts with it, very positively. It will do a lot of damage with something like Tincture, for example. Generally pretty good. Caltrops, 1 cost power. Whenever you are attacked, deal 3 damage back. This is another one of those cards, like we talked about with Disarm in the last video, that is okay, but it becomes exceptional if you are planning on fighting the Heart of the Spire, the Act 4 boss that is strictly optional. This track is really loud, sorry. Again, because of that multi-attack, Disarm massively reduces the damage of that X by 15 multi-attack that Heart has. Caltrops just deals 45 damage back, upgrades to 5 damage per hit, so it upgrades to deal... what's 15 times 5? Oh my god, 75. 75 damage back to the Heart on each of those multi-attacks. 75 damage for 1 energy. Even if it's only in 1 specific attack, that's too much to pass up. Why is this... Okay, sorry, the track is just really quiet. I thought the music had stopped again. I'm putting Caltrops in pretty good, but if you are planning on fighting the Heart, it is almost a snap pick. If you are not confident you have enough damage to beat the Heart, Caltrops becomes a snap pick. You pick it probably over any of these, except maybe After Image for the Heart specifically. Catalyst, possibly the most infamous card in Silent. 1 cost skill, double the enemy's poison, exhaust. Upgrades to triple the enemy's poison, exhaust. Let's do a little thought experiment, shall we? Let's say your only source of poison is Bouncing Flask, and you're lucky enough to draw Bouncing Flask and Catalyst on the same turn, neither of which are upgraded. Bouncing Flask applies 9 poison, assuming it's a single target boss fight. Applies 9 poison, Catalyst, 1 energy, deal 9 poison to the enemy. That's pretty good. 9 poison? It's not bad at all for 1 cost. Let's say Bouncing Flask is upgraded, 12, an extra 12 poison. What if they're both upgraded? Bouncing Flask inflicts 12 poison, Catalyst increases that to 36. The big mistake people make with this card is being too greedy with it. It's by waiting to play Catalyst until they can get the quote-unquote most value out of it, by playing it on an enemy who already has like 50 poison. Well, you don't need to double 50 poison. If the enemy has 50 poison on them, they're already dead. You want to get them to that point as quickly as possible, which means sometimes you play Catalyst when the enemy only has 10 poison on it. and that doubles to 20, and that does a lot more damage than it would if you waited another 4 or 5 turns until Catalyst comes through the deck again to play it. In the long run, because poison obviously ticks every single turn. Catalyst is not a snap pick because it's conditional, and this is the same thing as Corruption last time. Corruption is an incredible card, but it only fits in a deck that is suited to it. You can't just put Corruption in any deck and expect to win. Same with Catalyst, but Catalyst is incredible, much like Corruption is. Next up is Choke. 2 cost. Attack. Deal 12 damage. Whenever you play a card this turn, not counting Choke, the enemy loses 3 HP. And again, effects in Slay the Spire pretty consistently resolve from top to bottom. So firstly, the energy cost is up here. That represents the card being played. Next, we play an attack, and any effects that rely on us playing an attack resolve. We deal 12 damage. Some effects will resolve after that. And then, whenever you play a card this turn, the enemy loses 3 HP. So we've already played Choke by the time that this text comes into play. They are subsequent effects. And you might have been wondering, well, we've rated 15 cards so far? I'm not going to count them. I am going to count them, because that's just who I am as a person. 11, 15. We've rated 18 cards now. And none of them are in D tier. Not yet. Choke is not good. It looks like it fits in a deck that does a very specific thing, which is kind of true. The kind of deck that wants Blade Dance, the kind of deck that wants accuracy, maybe the kind of deck that wants Backstab. Most of them want Backstab. Lots and lots of little attacks, lots of shivs, usually. But those decks don't need an extra damage plan. Those decks have already got loads of shivs. They've already got accuracy. They're already sitting pretty. They're doing lots of damage. Choke does not help them do that, because Choke costs 2 energy. Let's say you are in Act 1, you have a Choke and a Blade Dance in your hand. You play Choke, deals 12 damage. You play the Blade Dance. We're not worried about the damage from the Blade Dance specifically, but just the extra damage from Choke. That's an extra 12, right? So that becomes 2 energy, deal 24 damage. An extra 3 for the Blade Dance, and an extra 3 each for each of the 3 shivs. 24 damage for 2 energy. And that's kind of your best case scenario. It's not amazing. It's exactly fine. If there was a card that just said 2 energy, deal 24 damage, on Silent, I would take it... I'd probably put it in pretty good tier. Tops. On Ironclad or Watcher, it would be significantly better. Choke is generally just not good enough. It upgrades to deal no more additional damage, but an extra 3 damage, or an extra 3 HP loss, which is actually slightly different. It's not great. Upgrades to enemy loses 5 HP. I think I might have misspoken there. But yeah, not great. Not great. Cloak and Dagger, 1 cost skill, gain 6 block, add 1 shiv into your hand. Upgrades to add 2 shivs into your hand. I really, really like this card. I accept that it's reasonably mediocre. The obvious parallel is Iron Wave, which is 1 energy, gain 5 block, deal 5 damage. This is gain 6 block, deal 4 damage. It's 2 card plays, which can be good for After Image or bad for Time Eater. It's kind of a toss-up. It's good. I think it's pretty good. I kind of want to put it in Incredible, but looking at these cards, I can't put it quite on the same level as these, but it's very strong. I do like it, particularly upgraded. It's an okay amount of block, and it's a really good reason to pick up Shiv Synergy, which is just a fun way to play Silent, and it can be a very strong way to play Silent. Next up is Concentrate. 0 cost skill, discard 3 cards, gain 2 energy. You're already seeing the problem here, right? Which is that if you've discarded all your cards, what do you need the energy for? Well, Concentrate can be a plan for decks that draw a lot of cards and don't have enough energy. Stop me if I'm going too fast. Silent is the only class on which Concentrate would be strong, I think. You could maybe make an arc. You can. It's just Silent, I think. It's just Silent. I suppose you could make an argument for Watcher. I'm not sure I would. And it's not great on Silent, I would say. It's discarding 3 cards is just too much of a downside. There's not enough synergy for discarding. It doesn't usually work out. It's sometimes okay, though. Next up is Corpse Explosion. 2-cost skill, apply 6 poison. When the enemy dies, deal damage equal to its max HP to all enemies. This is a very particular tool in the toolbox, which is AoE, right? It specifically lets you treat an area of effect fight like a single target fight. You play Corpse Explosion on something, and then you just focus that thing down, and then everything else explodes as well. It's an incredible card. It's not quite a snap pick, it's very close. Yeah, it's very, very good. The poison is actually fine. It upgrades to, I believe, apply 9 poison? Could be mistaken about that. Which is actually pretty good. People think it's a bad upgrade for some reason. I think because it doesn't upgrade the kind of big flashy thing that Corpse Explosion does. But an extra 3 poison for an upgrade is actually very, very good. Nothing wrong with that at all. Speaking of which, Crippling Cloud, 2-cost skill, apply 4 poison and 2 weak to all enemies, exhaust. This is such a good catch-all card. It's one of Silent's relatively many really powerful 2-cost cards. It upgrades to 7 poison and 2 weak. 2 weak to all enemies? That's a block plan right there. And the poison is a really nice touch on top of that. It's going in Incredible pretty neatly, I think. There are very few circumstances where I'm not happy to see Crippling Cloud. Dagger Spray, 1-cost attack, deal 4 damage to all enemies twice. Upgrades to deal 6 damage to all enemies twice. Really strong AoE early on. Obvious parallel with Cleave. Gains double the effect from Strength. Obviously doesn't count as 2 card plays. But it's pretty good. Like, at the beginning of Act 1, you'd pick it a bit more highly. Because to be honest, most of these cards are quite situational, the ones I've put in B tier. Later on in the game, it's a relatively rare pick, because you usually have a damage plan already sorted out on Silent by the time you get to the end game. This music is so loud. Austin Wintory, I love you so much, and yet I'm turning you down. Yeah, Dagger Spray, exactly fine. Exactly fine. I remember putting Cleave in A tier, I think. Ironclad generally needs more damage early than Silent does, because Silent can sort of block its way through Act 1 a little bit better. Ironclad really needs to run through everything face first. Silent can afford to be a little bit choosier, in my opinion. 1-cost attack, Dagger Throw, deal 9 damage, draw 1 card, discard 1 card, upgrades to deal 12 damage. This is another one of those cards that says discard on it, but doesn't actually have any discard synergy. We haven't seen any discard synergy yet, and we're not gonna. Or very little of it, anyway. However, Dagger Throw does a lot of damage. Yeah, it's a strong damage card. It's pretty good. Obvious parallel with Pommel Strike. I always say Pummel Strike. It's Pommel Strike. 1-cost, deal 9, draw a card. Discarding a card is fine. It's not better than Pommel Strike. Discarding a card is usually a downside, but not a huge one. Dash, 2-cost attack, gain 10 block, deal 10 damage. In that order as well, so if you're attacking something with thorns, you're going to be pretty safe. Dash is really, really good. It's like a double Iron Wave, right? And it upgrades to, I believe, 13 and 13. It's not incredible. It's incredible in Act 1. Overall, it's pretty good. Not a lot to say about Dash, really. Other than it's yet another very solid 2-cost card for Silent that really means Silent needs energy. Really struggles with energy more than the other classes. At least I struggle with energy more. Maybe I'm just picking too many of these 2-cost cards. Who knows? Next up, Deadly Poison. 1-cost skill, apply 5 poison. Upgrades to 7. This doesn't look great. And it's not. It's fine. It is a very fine card. If I transform into Bane, for example, I'm not gonna do an impression. If I transform a strike into the card Bane, Deadly Poison is something I want to pick up as a premium. Otherwise, it's only sometimes okay. Defend is a starter card. We don't rank those. They're always going to be, please don't take this. Almost always. Deflect, 0-cost skill, gain 4 block. By virtue of being a cheap defensive skill, it synergizes really well with, or scales really well with Dexterity. Something we haven't seen very much of in the Silent toolkit so far, but we will. Dexterity is a very, very strong way of scaling defensively that just causes all of your blocks to be blockier. It does for block what Strength does for attacks. Deflect, however, really needs some Dexterity to be worth it. If you're struggling with energy, then Deflect can be a good addition to the deck to essentially lower the average cost of the cards that you draw. But I think it's only sometimes okay. Die, 1 cost attack. Deflect upgrades to 6 block. I can't remember if I mentioned that. Die, 1 cost attack, deal 13 damage to all enemies, exhaust. This upgrades to, like, is it 16? 17? It's been so long since I've played Silent, genuinely. I've really been focused on Ironclad recently. It's good. I mean, it's very strong, right? It's almost no downside. If you don't want to play it in any given fight, well, you only have to play it once and then it's gone. And it does a ton of damage to everything. It's a pretty simple card, pretty incredible pick. It's not quite going in snap pick tier because all it does is deal damage, no matter how efficient it is. And it's reasonably tough to scale. Silent doesn't have as much access to strength as Ironclad does, for example. And if you're doing attack stuff with Silent, you probably want to be doing like card spam attack stuff with things like Blade Dance. And you tend to scale that in a slightly different way with things like Shuriken and Kunai and perhaps Accuracy, maybe even Wrist Blade, that specifically affect shivs or 0-cost cards, however it's phrased. Distraction, 1-cost skill. Add a random skill into your hand. It costs 0 this turn. Exhaust. So, my initial reaction is put this in D tier, right? Please don't take this. But if we look at Alchemize, this is functionally kind of like a slightly worse skill potion. It's a much worse skill potion. I'll level with you. I had a brain fart and forgot that skill potions allowed you to choose which skill you take. I was like, there's an interesting dichotomy here. There isn't. It's going in D tier. Moving on. Dodge and roll. 1-cost skill. Gain 4 block. Next turn, gain 4 block. This is a deceptively complex card. Firstly, it scales doubly with Dexterity. It double dips. Both components of this card scale with Dexterity. Secondly, it really rewards you knowing what the enemy's going to do next. Because some enemies are more predictable than others. Look at Lagavulin as an example, the Act 1 Elite. Lagavulin starts off asleep, and after 3 turns, or when you deal health damage to it, whichever happens first, it wakes up, and then it attacks you twice in a row for pretty big single target attacks, and then spends a turn debuffing you, and then it just repeats that 3-turn cycle for the rest of the fight until it dies, or until you die, which if you let it debuff you is pretty close, or pretty likely. So if you know that, hey, Lagavulin debuffed me last turn, which means it's attacking me this turn and it's going to attack me next turn, Dodge and Roll becomes an extremely strong card. If you haven't spotted that cycle, or you're in a fight with a more complex cycle, then it can be more difficult to know what the enemy's going to do next. Sometimes it's impossible to know for sure what they're going to do next, which makes Dodge and Roll worse. But in times where you can reliably use both components of this card, it's a very strong block card. It's going in pretty good. And that's only because Silent already has so many different ways to generate block. But Dodge and Roll is secretly one of my favorites, even if I acknowledge it's not super strong. It upgrades to gain 6 block and next gen gains 6 block, which is very generous, I would say. But it's staying in pretty good just for those turns where that next turn block doesn't go off. But then drawing any block card when you're not being attacked for enough is a whiff, right? Dodge and Roll is just no exception to that. Next up is Doppelganger, our first X cost card. It's a skill. Next turn, draw X cards and gain X energy exhaust. This upgrades to effectively X plus 1. So if you have 3 energy, it acts like you have 4 energy. X plus 1 cards, X plus 1 energy. This is good. It's an awkward one, because it's kind of good if your deck's bad, right? If you have energy left over to play Doppelganger, it's probably because you don't have enough card draw in the first place. And Doppelganger isn't really a solution for that, because it doesn't draw you cards on the turn where you have spare energy. It draws you cards on the next turn. It allows you to carry that energy over to the next turn, which is very good. But again, worth mentioning, this card doesn't do anything the turn you play it, which can be a bit of a struggle if you are low on card draw. Essentially what I'm saying is, if you don't have spare energy to play Doppelganger, you're probably doing something right in the first place, and you don't need Doppelganger. That said, if it's upgraded, it's one of the best upgrades in the game. Some of the best upgrades in the game that you'll see are cards that upgrade to cost 1 less. So things like Envenom down here, things like Alchemize, especially reusable cards that cost 1 less, like Body Slam or even Zap, tend to be extremely strong upgrades. Doppelganger effectively gives you an energy next turn, but it still gives you an energy, and it draws you an extra card with its upgrade. And it allows you to play Doppelganger when you have 0 energy left, which is the main problem with the card that I just talked about. Essentially, kind of always a win in that regard, because let's walk through it, right? So you have Doppelganger in your hand, you have 0 energy. Okay, you've drawn Doppelganger instead of a card that is useful this turn, but because it's Doppelganger Plus, you can play it for 0, and then you get an extra card and an extra energy next turn. So it replaces itself by giving you an extra card draw, and it also gives you a free energy. So the fact that it's delayed a turn is a downside, but I think the upside makes up for it. I think this is incredible. I could even see putting it in Snap Pick. I really, really like Doppelganger. Next up is Endless Agony, 0 cost attack. Whenever you draw this card, add a copy of it into your hand, deal 4 damage, exhaust. Parallel here with Anger. Or is it? Anger duplicates itself when you play it. Endless Agony duplicates itself when you don't play it. The longer you can hold off on playing Endless Agony, the more Endless Agonies you draw, and you can have a big explosive turn when you play all of your Endless Agonies, and that's the conceit of the card. Doesn't actually work really ever. Silent with lots and lots of card draw and no energy really loves Endless Agony. Silent with Wristblade to make Endless Agony deal more damage really loves it. But if you have Wristblade, then you're doing Shiv stuff, and you don't need an extra source of damage, you don't need an extra damage plan. You'd actually rather this was a Shiv. But you know what? Worst case scenario, it's 0 cost, deal 8. Because it's, twice deal 4, right? It's actually not bad. I'm going to put it in pretty good, because trying to work with the conceit of this card, which is not playing it until you play loads of them at once, sucks, doesn't work almost ever. Not saying it's never worked, but, I mean, all of these cards down here have had successes in the past, right? Endless Agony is lucky to be in pretty good. Yeah, it's underwhelming, but it is at least deal 8 damage for 0, which can be pretty okay. Next up, Envenom, 2 cost power. Whenever an attack deals unblocked damage, apply 1 poison. Again, this doesn't upgrade the way you want it to, but it does upgrade to cost 1 less, which is actually very, very, very good. So sorry, my throat is killing me. Why am I doing this today? It's the question we all want an answer to. Envenom is only good when it's upgraded, and kind of like Endless Agony, it's good in the same kind of deck which already doesn't need a bunch of extra damage. It doesn't need Envenom, it doesn't need Endless Agony, it doesn't need Choke. Being able to spam a bunch of Shivs is what makes these cards good, with the exception of Endless Agony, which just kind of does the same thing as that. Being able to spam loads of Shivs is what makes Envenom good, but Envenom doesn't really add anything to that. The amount of poison you get from Envenom is always underwhelming. And if it's not, then you're always doing more hit damage than you are doing poison damage. Envenom is kind of a trap. It's sometimes okay, but really only when it's upgraded. It does have a unique and quite funny interaction with Bane, where the second half of Bane can trigger off applying poison from the first half, which is fine. It's whatever. It's not good, but it's fine. Next up is Escape Plan. This is a tricky one. Escape Plan, 0 cost skill. Draw 1 card. If the card you draw is a skill, gain 3 block. So this is what we call a cantrip. This is a Magic the Gathering term that sort of seeped its way into the zeitgeist. We call it a cantrip because it's a 0 cost card that draws a card, so essentially it's free, right? Like, when would you not want Escape Plan? You draw it, it costs nothing to play, and then it replaces itself. There's no downside to playing it, right? And it can give you 3 block. Okay. 3 block is not very much. I don't know. 3 block is not very much. Is that controversial? And there are downsides to playing Escape Plan. This is something that people sometimes overlook, I think. A little bit at least. Escape Plan is a card that you play, even though it replaces itself. It increments Time Eater's 12-card limit. Time Eater is an Act 3 boss that just ends your turn every 12 cards you play, whether you play them on the same turn or not, and gains strength whenever you do so. So you want to play very few cards against Time Eater. This obviously triggers the Heartbeat of Death, which deals damage to you every time you play a card. Playing cards when you don't have to play cards is not usually good. Escape Plan goes in sometimes okay, because it's never really better than okay. Even if you have let's say you have 6 dexterity, because you're doing Shiv spam stuff, and you have a kunai which is generating dexterity for you. You have maybe 2 footworks, whatever. Maybe you have 8 dexterity. Let's say you have 8 dexterity. What's the best case scenario for Escape Plan? You have 8 dexterity, right? Okay, it gains you 11 block. Okay. It gains you 11 block sometimes, maybe 2/3 of the time, because Silent is quite skill heavy. And, I mean, did you need that 11 block? You have 8 dexterity. You're not struggling to block here. Escape Plan is not really doing much for you. Next up, Eviscerate. 3 cost. Attack. Costs 1 less energy for each card discarded this turn. Deals 7 damage 3 times. So we are about halfway through, right? Maybe more than halfway through? Probably more than halfway through. We've seen so many cards that discard. And this is the first thing we've seen that actually gives you a benefit when you discard. You are going to be discarding things sometimes, but the cards that say discard a card on them don't tend to be great. There are some that are fine. I'm just looking at, are there any that I put above B tier? Yeah, Calculated Gamble. Yeah, that's fair. Thing is, if you have Eviscerate in your hand, Calculated Gamble discards it. Awkward. There's Dagger Throw here. All-out Attack. You might want either of those. Fine. Eviscerate doesn't go off as often as it would need to be good. If you discard one card on the turn that you play Eviscerate, something which is actually quite not necessarily likely, certainly not a given, it becomes 2 cost, deal 21 damage, which is exactly fine. I think it upgrades to deal 9 damage 3 times, so 27 damage. That's still less than Carnage, which is 28 with an upgrade. Eviscerate, I think, is just not particularly good. It's sometimes okay. If you are doing discard things because you have a tincture and you've picked up loads of these discard cards, Eviscerate can be a nice damage plan for that, but so is tincture. This is the issue that Silent has, is lots of synergies that kind of step on each other's toes a lot. Lots of kind of grey area, lots of overlap between different deck builds, and I think that can be good. I mean, I don't like the fact, for example, that Watcher really only has a couple of different ways to win, and they're very discreet. You have red-blue stuff, so Calm and Wrath Stance, which is by far the most common. You have Divinity, and then you have... what even is the other one? I'm completely blanking on it. You only really have a couple of ways to do anything real on Watcher. and they are so far apart that you are very much like either doing this, or you're doing this, or you're doing this, and that's it's very clear cut. Silent is not like that. And I think that's why it is considered, probably most people would say it's the hardest class to play, sometimes tied with defect. Silent is tough. Silent is a really, really tough class, and that is one of the reasons why so many cards are kind of just sitting in this kind of fuzzy grey space between different builds, and it's often very unclear whether they actually work with what you're doing or not. And I think that can be really good design, but it is difficult to play, and it makes it difficult to rank cards as well. Expertise, 1 cost skill, draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. This is like bad scroll, right? It's not bad necessarily, but it doesn't feel great. Silent has a decent amount of card draw already. Not a huge amount of these cards actually say draw cards on them, but then you have Ring of the Snake as well, and generally speaking, Silent is not going to struggle with card draw. I don't think I've ever taken Expertise and had it draw more than 3 cards in a given time. I don't take it very often. I think it's sometimes okay. It's just kind of underwhelming, I suppose. Because again, it's a 1 cost card and all it does is draw cards. So you're likely to end up with a bunch of cards that you didn't get a chance to play. Now, that's not necessarily terrible, because drawing cards, yes, it gives you more kind of potential power in your hand, gives you more potential damage, more potential block, but it also gives you a greater choice of what to play, and that's something that's underrated, I think, with card draw. But Expertise just doesn't do enough. The fact that it costs 1 energy is really, really painful for it. Just doesn't tend to be very good in my experience. Finisher, 1 cost attack, deal 6 damage for each attack played this turn. This card is deceptively strong. It looks kind of complex to manage, and people will sometimes shy away from it and be like, oh, I have to keep track of how many cards I've played, how many attacks I've played. You don't have to. I mean, right, even if you play 2 attacks and then Finisher, something which is very reasonable, it's 12 damage for 1 energy, which is completely fine. That's a completely fine card. If you are doing shift stuff, Finisher can be really strong for that. You might be expecting me to say, well, it's just another source of damage for a deck that already has lots of damage. Yeah, but it's really efficient damage. So if you have well-laid plans or Runic Pyramid, Finisher gets a lot better. I'm putting it in pretty good. It could be incredible. I can see it. The only reason it's not is because it's pretty useless for decks that are just doing poison stuff, which is a significant proportion of Silent decks. We haven't seen too many poison cards yet, but there are some more coming up that are really good. Next to is Flechettes. Kind of similar to Finisher, I suppose. 1 energy, attack, deal 4 damage for each skill in your hand. I've completely stopped talking about upgrades in it, except where they're relevant. I just forget, and I hate going back to talk about cards that I've already talked about, so I'm just not going to be doing that going forward, sorry. But Flechettes, deal 4 damage for each skill in your hand, upgrades, I believe, to deal 6 damage for each skill in your hand. It's quite good. It's quite good. Deceptively so, I would say, because Silent is very skill heavy and tends to draw a lot of cards. Say you have an average of 6 cards in your hand. Bear in mind, on turn 1 you always have 7, right, unless you give away your starter relic. Probably 4 of those are likely to be skills. 3 will be a combination of attacks and powers. If one of those attacks is Flechettes, it's doing 16 damage for 1. It's pretty good. If you have, I suppose if you have Envenom, it's also applying 4 poison, which is not bad at all. Flechettes is generally quite strong. And actually, deceptively good in poison decks. Poison decks can often be upwards of 80% skills. Things like Catalyst and Crippling Cloud and Bouncing Flask and even Deadly Poison. Adrenaline is very common. Backflip, things like that. Yeah, Bane sometimes. You don't need Bane to be a poison deck. And Flechettes can just be a nice kind of burst of damage, which is something poison decks really struggle with. Poison decks really struggle against Shield and Spear, for example, the Act 4 Elite fight, because that fight really desperately needs you to burst one of those guys down as soon as possible. because they have like a pincer attack on you, right? And if you are facing one of them, the other one will do more damage to you. And there are turns where they're both attacking you at once. So you're going to be taking a lot of damage in that fight until one of them dies. And flechettes can really help a poison deck do that. And I do give disproportionate credence to the shield and spear fight and to the heart fight, because they're the only two fights that are guaranteed on every run that is attempting to make it to the heart. And most players at high levels of, not everyone certainly, but most players at high levels of play are attempting to kill the heart on every run. That's kind of considered to be part of the game at this point. It's not mandatory by any means, but it's generally what most people are trying to do at high levels of play, and flechettes is really good at the shield and spear fight. Poison is really good at the heart fight. Flying Knee. 1 cost attack, deal 8 damage, next turn gain 1 energy. Not bad. Not bad at all. Bit underwhelming in terms of damage for 1 energy, but it's not really 1 energy, is it? It's 1 energy this turn, and -1 energy next turn in terms of cost, right? So it's okay. It's mediocre. It's difficult to scale. Generally, if you're, as I've said before, if you are gaining a lot of strength on Silent, you're probably doing it through the relic Shuriken, which is an uncommon relic that gives you 1 strength every 3 attacks you play, or every time you play 3 attacks in 1 turn, excuse me. Which means you're running shivs, right? So Flying Knee is sort of a drop in the ocean in that damage, but it's fine. It's pretty good to take early on. It's really good against Lagavulin. For example, Lagavulin is very much a fight that is... Your performance against Lagavulin is gated by how much energy you have, in a way that Gremlin Knob and Sentries are not. Gremlin Knob because you don't want to be playing skills very often, and Sentries because you're drawing a lot of status cards and you don't generally end the fight or end each turn with 0 energy. Against Lagavulin, you want to be throwing all the energy you can at every single turn, as efficiently as possible, and Flying Knee is really, really good for that. It's a fight that Silent struggles with a bit. Yeah, it's I almost want to put it in pretty good just because of the Lagavulin fight, but it's good in Act 1 in general, and isn't particularly offensive later on in the game. Not too bad. Footwork, 1 cost power, gain 2 dexterity, upgrades to gain 3 dexterity. Makes all your blocks blockier, right? Footwork is one of the best defensive scaling options in the game. In terms of efficiency, it is phenomenal. It's going in incredible. It's not quite a snap pick, but it's not too far off. Footwork, let's say you play it, you draw it on turn... So you draw it on turn 3, and the fight goes for another 2 turns after that. You play 2 blocks on each of those turns. That's 2 block cards, each of which gains 2 more block on 2 turns, right? So it's 8 block. Sorry, yes, my brain completely imploded there. So it's 8 additional block, 12 if it's upgraded. And to be honest, that's a pretty conservative estimate. Usually you play Footwork pretty early in a fight because it's a power, so you tend to play it first and you draw it. And yeah, I mean, if the fight goes on for 4 more turns, it could be easily 20-30 block. Very, very strong. Glass Knife, 1 cost attack, deal 8 damage twice, decrease the damage of this card by 2 this combat. So it starts at 16 damage, upgraded starts at 24 damage, so 12 times 2. The cats again, I swear, I love them, I feed them, they are not starved for attention. I've just been sitting here for an hour. Love you. Hey, come here, buddy. That's right, sorry. My cat is more important than my YouTube videos. Love you. Okay, Glass Knife is an absolute savior. If you are lucky enough to see this before the Act 1 boss, it's a snap pick. It's almost a snap pick regardless. The reason that there are very few snap picks in Silent is because cards tend to be quite situational. There are lots and lots of tools for lots and lots of different situations, but there are very few cards which are really good that are just like, you want this always, because your deck is trying to do any one or two or three of so many different things. So yeah, Glass Knife is pretty close to a Snap Pick. I'm actually putting it in Snap Pick, just because the upgrade is so strong. 24 damage for 1 energy, sign me up. Grand Finale, 0 cost attack, can only be played if there are no cards in your draw pile. Deal 50 damage to all enemies. This is a tough one to rate, because deal 50 damage to all enemies for 0 is incredibly powerful. But this fits in a very specific type of deck. It fits in a deck which has lots of card draw, and lots of ways to manipulate card draw. So you really want decks which have, or you really want this in decks which can draw you lots of different values of cards. You might end up with both Dagger Throw and Adrenaline in your hand, for example. Well, that means that you can much more easily finagle it so that you have 0 cards in your draw pile and you can play Grand Finale. It's much better with Runic Pyramid. Or Well-Laid Plans, which we'll talk about near the end. When it goes off, it's obviously incredible, but it's difficult enough to make work that I almost want to just put it in Please Don't Take This and forget about it. I'm putting it in Come Time's Okay. I've seen it work, I've made it work, but it is more often than not worth the effort, in my opinion. Heel Hook, 1 cost attack, deal 5 damage. If the enemy has weak, gain energy and draw 1 card. So, similar to Dropkick from Ironclad, which is pretty much the same thing but for vulnerable. How many of these cards say make the enemy weak? Let's quickly go through, shall I? I might miss one. Just quickly going through. We've got Crippling Cloud. That's pretty good. That's the only card in the top 2 tiers that says make the enemy weak. Nope, the only card in the top 3 tiers. Only card in the top 4. It's the only card. Crippling Cloud is the only card. Unless I have genuinely missed one, but I don't think I have. The only card here that says make the enemy weak. There are, I think, 2 more. Maybe there's Neutralize and what's the other one I'm thinking of? Down here. Oh, yeah, Malaise. Malaise is very strong. And Sucker Punch. Alright, so there's a few cards we haven't talked about yet. Only one of them is one that you really want. There's Neutralize, you're going to have it anyway, but it's not that good. The enemy usually doesn't have weak. Heel Hook is basically a never take. I would skip overtaking this in Act 1. There are very few times where I would think the enemy is going to have weak often enough with the deck that I've got that Heel Hook is going to go off 1 time in 4. Not worth it. Infinite Blades, 1 cost power. At the start of your turn, add a Shiv into your hand. Upgrades to Innate. It's so slow. It's so slow. It's a 1 cost power, so it's fairly inoffensive. You pay 1 energy, you play it. You don't have to worry about it again. You get a Shiv every turn. If this lasts 3 turns, which I think is probably about average, deals 12 damage but split over 3 turns. It's just kind of nothing. It is one of those ones that's only good in a Shiv deck, and Shiv decks don't need it. So it's going in Come Time's Okay, even though I think it really could be in D tier. Leg Sweep, 2... Oh, forgot about Leg Sweep as well. Okay, Leg Sweep's good. 2 cost skill, apply 2 weak, gain 11 block. So it turns out, actually, that just... weakness just tends to be associated with cards that are later in the alphabet. Got it. Understood. Leg Sweep, 2 cost skill, apply 2 weak, gain 11 block. It's a really good card. I think it's incredible. I think it's more incredible than pretty good. Applying weak is very strong. And gain 11 block for 2 energy, I mean, that's not bad, right? That's just fine on its own, almost. So there are 2 cost cards on any class that just blocks. Impervious, okay, but that exhausts. Leg Sweep is reusable, and to be honest, late in the game, applying 2 weak, that's easily going to save you 15-20 damage. Yeah, Leg Sweep, very strong. Absolutely one of the best block cards in the game. Doesn't scale brilliantly with Dexterity. It does scale with Dexterity, obviously, but by virtue of being a 2-cost thing that only blocks for you once, it's not a massive kind of percentage upgrade, I suppose. Not a particularly efficient way to scale with Dexterity, but it's good. It gets the job done. Oh, sorry, my nose is blocked now. It's going really badly. Malaise. Another X cost card, a skill. Enemy loses X strength, apply X weak, and like Doppelganger, upgrades to X+1 strength and apply X+1 weak. Oh, buddy, this is such a good card. Particularly upgraded, you can do some incredible things with Malaise. Synergizes very well with Burst. One of the best reasons to take Burst is Malaise or Malaise Plus. Catalyst is the other one. Yeah, Malaise it's a snap pick for me. It's yeah, very good. I said near the beginning of the last video that card rarity is kind of a big psychological effect, particularly for new players, in how often they take cards, how good they think cards are. But rare cards genuinely are balanced to be slightly stronger than other cards. Rarity really is an indicator of power in a lot of cases. It's very variable. But these cards in particular are all exceptional. You could not convince me to take any of them out of Snap Pick. Yeah. Masterful Stab, 0 cost attack. Cost. Actually, let's do some quick Malaise maths first, shall we? Let's say you play Malaise for 1 against Book of Stabbing on a turn. It's doing 7 times 4 damage. So 7 times 4 is like a pretty. It's like turn 4 or 5 or so for Book of Stabbing generally. If you play a 1 cost Malaise on it, it loses 1 strength, so it goes from 7 times 4 to 6 times 4. And then it applies 1 weak to it, so it goes from 6 times 4 to 4 times 4. So it goes from doing 28 damage to 16 damage. So that's 12 block just on that 1 turn. And then it still has 1 less strength for the remainder of the fight. Ridiculous. So good. Don't even get me started on how good it is against the heart. Masterful Stab, 0 cost attack. Costs 1 additional energy for each time you lose HP this combat. Deal 12 damage. Silent is kind of a setup-oriented character. Not to the same extent as Watcher, but it's sort of on par with Defect, I would say, in that it's relatively weak early on in the fight, and tends to scale up very, very quickly in power over the first few turns. That means that you tend to take a bit of chip damage early on in a fight, unless you have a really solid block plan already, or you are strong enough to be killing everything in the first couple of turns. Masterful Stab just doesn't do enough. If it costs 0, deals 12 damage, that's fine. It's okay. It's let's compare that to Endless Agony, which I called pretty good. I think maybe a little generously, because it deals 8 damage for 0. This deals 12 damage for 0. But if it starts costing 1, it's not great. 12 damage for 1 energy is like, it's alright, it's fine, I suppose. At 2 cost, this is unplayable. I think it's very, very rare that you want to take Masterful Stab. I think, as the name might suggest, it's kind of a win more card, where you take it when you are already winning, because that's the only time that you can guarantee that you're going to be able to play it for any effect. It takes a deck that's already winning and makes it win even harder. Well, who cares about that? I don't want to take a winning deck and make it better. I want to take a losing deck and turn it into a winning deck, and Masterful Stab just about never does that. Next up is Neutralize, which is a starter card, but it's actually, I'm going to talk about it a little bit because it's actually a pretty good one. Upgrades, particularly to deal 4 damage, whatever, and apply 2 weak. This is a pretty good defensive card. The damage is sort of nothing, really, but if you compare this to Intimidate, which is an actual Ironclad card that people actually take, and I think is quite good, Neutralize is like, it's strictly better than Intimidate in single target fights. Usually, if you're playing a 0 cost card, you can just play that on something that is attacking you, and then you can kill something else, right? I mean, you can use Neutralize to just reduce damage that you would otherwise be taking, and then you focus on a different target. That's why it's called Neutralize, right? If you're fighting 2 things, and they're each attacking you for 8, say you're in Act 1 on a relatively low ascension, and the lights are attacking you for 8 apiece. You can neutralize 1. That triggers roll up and reduces the 8 to 6, I think. Yeah, 6, right? And then you can focus on the other one, right? It's not bad. Not bad at all. I don't think I would take it in a card roll, but to be honest, this is like... I'm actually putting this in Come Times Okay just for the fact that its upgrade is so strong. Yeah. I didn't think I was going to put any starter cards above D tier, but I'm doing it for Neutralize. Nightmare, 3 cost skill, choose a card. Next turn, add 3 copies of that card into your hand. Exhaust. This is kind of a throwback to the Ironclad video, right, where I talked at length about 3-cost powers that don't do anything the turn you play them, like Barricade, or, in this case, Nightmare. Nightmare is kind of a win-more card. It is a card that is only good if you have the space to play it. It's a card that's only good if you have 3 energy to spend on doing something fun and cool next turn because you didn't die this turn. You also need the energy next turn to play anything that you create, so you probably want to be nightmaring something that is low cost, high impact. Like, I mean, Catalyst is a strong one, right? A Backstab can be actually pretty good, but then 3 energy for an extra 33 damage? Actually not that great. Yeah, Catalyst, Adrenaline could be fun, I suppose. Malaise Plus or Doppelganger Plus, each of which could be fine. You really do need to be nightmaring the right cards, and more often than not, Nightmare doesn't do enough. I'm going to put it in Comesounds okay. I very, very rarely take Nightmare. It can be very strong when it's strong, but it's a combo piece that is necessary for you to already have before you start taking other pieces of the combo, right? And so you kind of got to take a leap of faith and take it in a vacuum sometimes, and it's just doesn't usually pay off. Or maybe I'm just bad. Tell me I'm bad. I don't know, I'm probably bad at Silent. Noxious Fumes. 1 cost. Power. At the start of your turn, apply 2 poison to all enemies. Upgrades to apply 3 poison to all enemies. This is just such a nice source of passive damage. This is just a gorgeous way to scale up some damage every turn. You play it for 1 cost. It's a very good bottle target. If you have a bottle tornado, Noxious Fumes is a strong contender for that bottle. For that bottle. Gonna get mocked for my accent. Oh, the bottle of Noxious Fumes. It's going in incredible. It's also really good at getting rid of Artifact on enemies. Yeah, it's just generally a very strong card that you almost never don't want. It's not quite high impact enough to go in Snap Pick, but it's pretty close. Outmaneuver, 1 energy, skill. Next turn, gain 2 energy. It isn't good, is it? It just... It's kind of a combo piece, but what is a combo piece of is elusive to me, or at least a combo piece that's good would be elusive to me. Yeah, it's not really anything, is the best way I can describe Outmaneuver. It's 1 energy, do nothing. Next turn you gain some extra energy, fine. This turn you die because you spent an energy doing nothing. Phantasmal Killer, 1 energy, skill, and next turn your attacks deal double damage. This is pretty good. Maybe incredible. I could see it. Obviously it doesn't really work for anything in a poison deck. But it's fine, right? It's 1 cost, doesn't do anything this turn, so it can't really be any higher than pretty good, I would say. But dealing double damage next turn is very strong. For any kind of card spam attack heavy deck, which is where it fits, I'll take Phantasmal Killer quite often and be reasonably happy with it. Piercing Wail, 1 cost skill. All enemies lose 6 strength this turn. Exhaust. This is a very strong block card. It's exceptional against the heart. It's exceptional against anything which multi-attacks you. It's exceptional against multiple targets. If you are looking at taking 1 big hit this turn, for example against the heart or 3rd place Tommy, Bronze Automaton, Piercing Wail doesn't do a whole lot. But it does a lot more than that in most fights. It's excellent in any AoE fights. It's a real game changer against Reptomancer in particular. It can just completely neutralize a turn against Reptomancer, which can be very, very welcome because Reptomancer is a fight that Silent tends to struggle with. It's a fight that everyone tends to struggle with. Piercing Wail is incredible. It's really good. It's quite rare for a common card to make it this high up. As I was saying, I mean, most cards that are in this tier are rare or uncommon. Blade Dance and Backflip are the only others today. They're pretty good. They're pretty good. Also, can I just mention about this? Something I've literally only just noticed in the art, and I'm sure I'm super late to the party on these. Skills, attacks, and powers all have different shaped frames. So I did know about the corners of the card, the top left. You can't actually see them because the top left corners of the cards are all cut off here. But they're different shapes based on whether something is a skill or an attack. Oh, actually, no. It's the top right. Sorry, yeah. They're pointed for attacks and rounded for skills. What about powers? Yeah, that's super rounded for powers. Yeah, sorry, it is top right. But the actual frames are different as well. So they're kind of squared off for skills. They've got this kind of like a rhombus pattern, like a pentagon. It's not a rhombus for attacks. And then they're actually circular for powers. And the top of the circle actually goes over the banner or through the banner. Although the artwork doesn't. Oh, that's a little awkward. Okay, we're going way off on a tangent here. What card was I even talking about? Piercing Whale. Yeah, it's good. Take it. Poison Stab. 1 cost attack. Deal 6 damage. Apply 3 poison. It's fine. It's a damage solution early on. I can't put it in pretty good, I think. I don't think it's as good as the worst card in Pretty Good, which is Flying Knee. It's going in sometimes okay. There's not much more to say about it than that. Predator, 2 cost attack, deal 15 damage, next turn draw 2 additional cards. So another silent card that is giving up power this turn for power next turn. Thing is, if you put loads of those in your deck and try and call that a synergy, you just end up with a really inconsistent deck. And Predator is pretty good. 15 damage for 2 energy isn't great, but drawing 2 additional cards next turn is a very strong effect. And yeah, it's a pretty simple card, and I'm going to put it in pretty good, I think. Prepared, 0 cost skill, draw 1 card, discard 1 card. It's silent Warcry, right? Which is a funny phrase. It's Warcry for the silent. It upgrades to draw 2 cards, which is good, but in the state that it is, it's -1 card, right? It's 0 cost, causes you to discard a card and draw a card. So that's kind of a net 0, right? So it's a 0 cost card that you have to draw to play it. It is. I'm maybe going to upset some people. I'm going to put it in Please Don't Take This. It's only good if it's upgraded. It is good if it's upgraded. It's fine if it's upgraded. It doesn't quite do enough. The discard synergy that Silent has isn't really a thing most of the time. And unfortunately, Prepared just doesn't do enough with that discard synergy that doesn't exist. Quick Slash, 1 cost attack, deal 8 damage, draw a card. It's Pummel Strike, but 1 less damage. But because it's a different class, that's fine. Classes don't have to be balanced with... not every card in every class has to be completely balanced with every other card in every other class. Ironclad is a more aggressive character than Silent, and it's completely fine for it to have a card that is just like Silent but does a bit more damage. Because Silent benefits more from the card draw than Ironclad does, generally, I think. And dealing 8 damage is totally fine on Silent. It would be underwhelming on Ironclad. In Silent, I'm going to put this in sometimes okay. It's certainly not D tier. It's closer to B tier than D tier. It's not dissimilar to Flying Knee, I would say. It's okay. It's completely fine. It's a nice filler card. Does a bit of damage in Act 1. Reflex, skill, literally unplayable. If this card is discarded from your hand, draw 2 cards. So this is the first piece of discard synergy that we've seen, right? Now there's one other. What else have we seen that's discard synergy? Oh my god, it's got to be down here somewhere. Oh, it was Eviscerate. It was Eviscerate. Of course it was. This is a card that you can choose to discard, and you draw 2 cards when you do so. It's just not enough, right? It's just not enough to make you want to take cards that discard other cards. And if you don't have cards that discard other cards, Reflex is not very good. The most common reason to build a quote-unquote discard deck in Silent is if you take a Transform early on. and transform a strike into a reflex or an eviscerate or a tactician. Transform into one of those cards that has some discard synergy. Pandora's Box, also a strong, a really common source of these cards. And if you already have them in your deck, you can sort of build around them, but it's not super strong. The number of times you would take this in a card reward is very, very low, and I'm putting it into Please Don't Take This. And again, all of these cards can be taken in the right circumstances, obviously with the exception of Defend, but it's very rare that I would want to take a Reflex. Riddle with Holes, 2-cost attack, deal 3 damage 5 times. This card to me is kind of comparable in a way to Finisher. I said Finisher was pretty good, even though it only really works in card spam decks that already have a lot of damage, because it just does so much damage in those decks. And Riddle with Holes is kind of the same. These decks, ones that have Finisher, Blade Dance, sometimes Endless Agony, Accuracy, lots and lots of cards, lots of small attacks being spammed every single turn. You tend to build towards that because you have some synergy for it. Maybe it's an Accuracy, maybe it's Shuriken, the relic I mentioned earlier, uncommon relic. Every time you play 3 attacks in a turn, gain 1 strength for the rest of the combat. Riddle with Holes benefits quintuply from strength. Right, if you have 2 strength, it deals 25 damage. It's quite good. If you have Envenom, it also applies 5 poison. It's not bad. I'm gonna generously put it in pretty good. On its own, it's fine, I suppose, but it scales really well with several things that Silent wants to do, and it can be a way to really kind of tie together those kind of disparate synergies, I guess. So yeah, I like Riddle with Holes. I take it reasonably frequently. Setup, 1-cost skill. Put a card from your hand on top of your draw pile. It costs 0 until played. This coffee is so cold right now. I've been recording for nearly an hour and a half. What do you want to play with setup? Let's run a little thought experiment. We're looking for a high cost card, obviously, because the only benefit of setup is that it reduces the cost of the cards. So you want to draw it alongside something, probably a good card, right? So something from the top 2 tiers, maybe. Doesn't work at all with Adrenaline. Doesn't really work with After Image or Alchemize. Definitely doesn't work with Malaise. Glass Knife is like, why would you do that? It doesn't work with any of these S tier cards. A tier cards, we're looking for things that cost 2 really, so Bouncing Flask. Okay, but you could play Bouncing Flask this turn, and that would give you a lot more poison damage over the course of the fight, right? Same with Corpse Explosion. Corpse Explosion's an okay use case for it, I suppose. Leg Sweep, maybe if you're not being attacked this turn, you could set up a Leg Sweep. Okay, that's not terrible. Bullet Time doesn't do anything. 1,000 Cuts, well now we're into relatively bad cards. And Envenom. These are cards you want to play early. You could set up Nightmare. Setting up Nightmare is okay. Setup just doesn't do anything, man. It just doesn't do anything that you're not already doing. Setup is, I would say, probably the worst non-starter card in Silent. One of the worst non-starter cards in the game. It's not good. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments. I can take it. I'm a big boy. Skewer, X cost attack, deal 7 damage X times. Skewer can be strong, but it's more of a speedrun card. It's a card you take when you really just want to just run through the fights as quickly as possible. It's no fuss, does an okay amount of damage. What it doesn't have is any really of these kind of nebulous, kind of fuzzy synergies that Silent cards tend to have with each other. Like a party composed only of people who don't really know each other and are kind of making awkward small talk the whole time, just talking about work over drinks and looking at the clock. That's what Silent synergies are like. And Skewer is sort of the loner in the corner who's like looking jealously at the one group of people who's actually having a good time. Because it really wants to be a strength synergy card, but Strength synergy in Silent, once again, comes from Shivs. And Shuriken, usually. And if you're doing that, you're doing that. You don't need Skewer because, I mean, you're already playing loads of Shivs and they're getting loads of benefit from Strength. Skewer in that deck is really inefficient. It's borderline please don't take this, but it is sometimes okay. I pick it maybe like 25% of the time I see it in Act 1. It's fine. Slice, 0 cost attack, deals 6 damage. Now this actually does work with the kind of Blade Dance Shuriken stuff. It also notably works with Wristblade, a silent specific boss relic that causes attacks that cost 0, including Shivs but also including Slice, to deal 4 extra damage, which is quite good. I will put it in... I'll put it in sometimes okay. I'll put it in sometimes okay. It's sometimes okay. It doesn't really do enough to justify going any higher than that, but it's fine. Sneaky Strike, 2 cost attack, deal 12 damage. If you have discarded a card this turn, gain 2 energy. So there's another discard synergy. It's not good. It can be good to take early because of Survivor, which is a starter card that discards a card. If you already have cards that discard, Sneaky Strike can be fine if you're already struggling for damage. But the thing about Silent is you are really working towards putting a damage synergy package together. And that does not include looking for discard cards. It's going to go into Please Don't Take This. You can take it. I'm not your dad, but I wouldn't very often. Doesn't do it. 2 damage, 2 energy, 12 damage. Sometimes refunds itself. Even if it was 0 energy for 12 damage, like that would be good, but it wouldn't be that great, right? Like Endless Agony is already 8 damage for 0 energy, and it's only in pretty good. Yeah, it's fine. It's like it's Endless Agony is fine. Best case scenario, Sneaky Strike is a bit better than that. 50% better, sure. It's 4 extra damage for 1 card, and usually you don't get that energy back. It's not good. Storm of Steel, 1 cost skill, discard your hand, add 1 Shiv into your hand for each card discarded. So this really works with Reflex or Tactician. If you happen to have those cards, then Storm of Steel is really good for that. It doesn't work with Tactician. Ignore me, because you don't need the energy, unless you have Ice Cream. Storm of Steel is bad, actually. It's bad. If you are doing Shiv things, then the cards that you have in your hand are going to be doing better Shiv things than Storm of Steel most of the time. Yeah, you can use it to get rid of block that you don't need on this turn because you're not being attacked. You get, what, a couple of extra Shivs? It's worse than a Blade Dance. Like a lot worse than a Blade Dance. It's bad. Don't take it. Strike. Start a card. Don't care. Sucker Punch. 1 cost attack. Deal 7 damage. Apply 1 weak. I think this is fine. Applying weak is good. Sucker Punch is actually kind of... It's another one of those kind of Iron Wave-esque cards. That's just 1 energy, attack, deal a bit of damage, and gain a bit of block. And that's all it does, and that's fine. That's all you need it to do. I'm putting it in sometimes okay, but it could be close to pretty good. You've probably noticed I'm not worrying about position within the tier. I'm not like ranking all of these cards. I'm just putting them in tiers because we'll be here all fucking day otherwise. Sucker Punch is fine. Deals 7 damage, apply 1 weak. Upgrades to apply 2 weak, I think, and deals a bit more damage. Fine. Don't hate it. Don't hate it at all. There's some pretty underwhelming cards towards the arse end of Silent. Survivor, 1 energy, gain 8 block, discard 1 card. Similar to Neutralize, this actually doesn't suck. Discarding a card isn't too bad. It is probably a slight downside most of the time. But gaining 8 block is okay. It upgrades to gain 11 block, which is quite good. Don't hate Survivor. Don't hate it. It is a starter card. Tactician. Skill, unplayable. If this card is discarded from your hand, gain 1 energy. And like Reflex, it is literally unplayable. There is some discard synergy in Silent. It just doesn't come together very often. And if you have that synergy already, take a Tactician. But really, that Tactician is going to be the part of the synergy that you're offered first, or something like Reflex, or something like Eviscerate. You're going to look at it and be like, well, I didn't take discard cards, so I'm not taking Reflex, Tactician, or Eviscerate. Terror, 1 cost skill, apply 99 vulnerable, exhaust. This is quietly one of the best cards in Silent. Silent has two archetypes that people tend to think about when they think of how to win on Silent, and those archetypes are Poison and Shivs. And I have spent a while talking about both of them, mostly Shivs, because it's more interesting to talk about. And Terror is great in that, but it's also great in those decks which kind of end up stuck in the middle, and maybe they have a bit of poison, and they have mostly kind of attack damage, but not necessarily Shivs. Maybe they're running like Endless Agony, Riddle with Holes, Finisher. Maybe you sort of found yourself with some of these kind of mediocre cards like Poison Stab, Quick Slash, Sucker Punch. Terror makes them all so much better. How many of these cards say vulnerable on them? I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue. In the words of Brennan Lee Mulligan, it's a big fat goose egg, gang. None of them. Terror is the only one. Unless I've had a brain fart, in which case that was engagement bait and you fell for it. It's an incredible card. It's not a snap pick because of poison. If you're running a poison deck, you don't care about Terror at all. But if you're not, Terror is almost a win condition. You play Terror against the Heart, and suddenly everything's doing 50% more damage. Ridiculous. Very, very good. Upgrades to cost 0, by the way. Tools of the Trade. 1 cost power. At the start of your turn, draw 1 card and discard 1 card. I actually like this. This is almost analogous to Machine Learning on Defect, which is just 1 cost power. At the start of your turn, draw 1 card, no discard. Discarding can be good occasionally, it's usually bad, but if you find yourself in possession of Reflex, Tactician, Eviscerate, you can take a Tools of the Trade and be very happy about it. Because Tools of the Trade will pretty much always give you the opportunity to use that Reflex or Tactician. And so if you have a Tools of the Trade, and it's fine to pick up, I'm going to put it in pretty good. If you have a Tools of the Trade, that can be kind of the glue that holds that synergy together. It's not very good glue. It's more like Pritt Stick than Gorilla Glue, but yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Unload, 1 cost attack, deal 14 damage, discard all non-attack cards in your hand. This is sort of, I suppose, similar to Sever Soul on Ironclad, which is 2 cost, deal 16, but it exhausts non-attack cards in your hand. Unload is okay. It's a decent amount of damage. It's no Glass Knife, but it's not a million miles away, and discarding things, can be okay. I'm going to put it in pretty good. This would be A tier if it didn't discard stuff, even though discarding stuff is meant to be kind of an upside. Next up, we have 2 real doozies, 2 real big spicy beefy boys. We have Well-Laid Plans, 1 cost power. At the end of your turn, retain up to 1 card. Upgrades to retain 2. This is one of the best powers in the game, with one massive downside. Well-Laid Plans is just pure hand manipulation. It allows you to keep specific cards for specific situations, and it makes a lot of these nebulous synergy cards a lot better. It makes your exhaust synergies better. It makes them sort of takeable, almost. If you have a Well-Laid Plans, maybe you do take a Reflex, maybe you do take a Tactician, knowing that at some point you'll probably discard it. It's really, really strong. You can keep a Catalyst, you can keep a Corpse Explosion, you can keep a Malaise for the turn that you need it. You can keep Adrenaline just for a turn that you need a bit of extra power. You can keep Alchemize so that you can use a potion in a very specific way and then immediately generate another one. Well-Laid Plans is exceptionally strong. And it has, 2 downsides. One minor downside is that it makes all your turns take a little bit longer, which some people really hate. I don't have the most patience myself, but it is undeniably very strong. The other downside, which is sort of a real downside, is that Well-Laid Plans is entirely superseded by the boss relic Runic Pyramid, which gives you... it retains everything in your hand every turn without question. And it's a very strong boss relic, and it's one that you very often want to pick on any character. And so if you have a Well-Laid Plans and you find yourself offered a Runic Pyramid, it makes you slightly less likely to take Runic Pyramid. And if you do take Runic Pyramid, you want to remove that Well-Laid Plans as quickly as possible because it just turns it into a curse. But it's still a snap pick. Unless you have Runic Pyramid, it's a snap pick. Lastly, but not leastly, Wraith Form. 3-cost power, gain 2 intangible, upgrades to 3 intangible. At the end of your turn, lose 1 dexterity. Actually a really good candidate for keeping with Wall plans. Allows you to completely block a big attack that you know is coming from 3rd place Tommy, or the Heart, or Reptomancer. It's such a good card. It does cost 3, but it gives you almost infinite block for 2 turns. You can take a little bit of chip damage if you don't block for anything. But it's very, very good. It comes with its own downside, of course. It's the only one of the form cards that does. There are some... I'll talk about this in a second. Yeah, it's very good. It's not quite a snap pick for me, but it's very, very strong. And if your deck is confident in the amount of damage it's doing, it's very, very good. I mentioned form cards, by the way. It's the only one of the form cards that has a downside. There are some kind of threads running through Slay the Spire, some little kind of nods to other classes. In each class, for example, every class, and this is something I didn't notice for hundreds of hours of playing Slay the Spire, by the way, every class has a 3-cost rare power that ends in the word form. Ironclad has Demon Form, which generates strength every turn. Silent has Wraith Form, which gives you intangible in exchange for dexterity. Defect has Echo Form, which causes all of your cards... the first card each turn to be played twice. And Watcher has Diva Form, Deva Form, or Deva Form, depending on how you pronounce it, which gives you scaling energy every single turn. Wraith Form's the only one with a downside, and that's because the upside is just... It needs the downside to be remotely balanced. So yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. I've enjoyed this one. I've enjoyed this more than I thought I would. Silent is probably my least favorite character, although I do enjoy playing it. And I'm looking forward to doing, coming back to doing the Defect in the very near future. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.